Ram trucks, built to serve.
Back here, first things first, we're now joined by Super Bowl champ Chris Kenny.
What up, man?
What's going on, man?
It is great to see you.
Swap seats, man. Yeah, swap seats. I mean, they had me run the gamut the last couple of weeks. Only person's chair I haven't sat in is Jenna's.
And nor will you. I actually take this with me when I walk away, bring it home, bring it back the next day. Kenny, let's talk some Cowboys. Dak Prescott walked away with the credit for beating the Lions this past Sunday, 444 passing yards, while Ezekiel Elliott once again took second fiddle. Dak now first in the NFL in passing yards, while Zeke is 8th in rushing yards. Yesterday on Undisputed, Hall of Fame running back LaDainian Tomlinson was asked what he thought about Zeke's lack of production. Take a listen.
Anytime you have a young quarterback, you got a young offensive coordinator, you're going to want to try to uplift that young quarterback to be in the MVP race, right?
Okay.
And so naturally, you're not going to run the ball as much as you used to. You want to use all those weapons. They have massive weapons at the wide receiver position. Gallup has stepped up. Randall Cobb has stepped up. I love their receiving corps.
Say what you will about that spicy take, Nick. You worried that Zeke won't get back on track?
I love LaDainian, and he's one of those underrated players in the history of the league. He's in the discussion for one of the 5 greatest running backs ever, but that not in the discussion for one of the 5 greatest takes ever. And by a roster construction standpoint, it would make no sense. You just paid Zeke. You're going to have to pay Dak. If anything, if you were going to play any funny games with production, as if the Cowboys have the benefit of we're so good we can decide who produces for us, you would want it to be the guy you already paid, not the guy who is still awaiting his new enormous contract extension. But to answer your question, I am not worried about Ezekiel Elliott. Zeke, up to 2 games ago, was on his career averages, which is he's going to rush about 1,500 yards. He's going to either lead the league in rushing or come damn close, and he's going to be the best between the tackles runner in the NFL. Now, he's had a really bad 2 games. He was bad against Minnesota, and they lost. He was bad this past weekend, and they could have lost.
And by the way, a lot of running backs are bad against that Minnesota Vikings front 7.
It's a great point. It's a great point, Canty. And this week, it wasn't just that he was limited. He also lost a fumble early in the game, which put him behind the 8 ball against a Detroit team. But the problem in the Detroit game was not the offense. The problem was, of course, the Cowboys defense allowing Jeff Driscoll to hang 27 on him. But I still believe that while I give Dak immense credit for playing better than I ever thought he could, I did not think Dak, even for a short period of time, could do over 10 games what he's done over these 10 games. Guy who had 5 career 300-yard passing games going into the season, leads the league in passing yards at 321 a game. I never thought that was possible, so credit to Dak. But he is still benefiting, to my eye, somewhat from defenses, even if the numbers say this year they shouldn't. Defenses going into the game saying, we got to stop Zeke first. And if that changes, if all of a sudden, because of how well Dak's played, they start removing one of those people from the box to either help out on Cooper or help out on Gallup, who's played really well as of late, then I think you will see Zeke get right back to Ezekiel Elliott levels of production.
No, I'm right there with you. I mean, people forget, before that Minnesota Vikings game, Zeke had one of the best 4-game stretches of his entire career. I mean, the Dallas Cowboys, 7th in attempts, 7th in yards, and 7th in yards per at 4.6. So I don't really worry about whether or not they're going to be able to get the production in the running game, especially when we get to the latter part of the season. Defenses become a little bit more beat up. There'll be opportunities for Zeke to put his imprint on ball games. But I'm right there with Nick. I think that Zeke is right now the focal point of defenses in their game plans coming in to face that Dallas Cowboys offense. And what we've seen from Dak Prescott this year is him being able to evolve his game and take advantage of one-on-one coverage that he's getting with his wide receivers down the field outside of the numbers. So I think this is more about Dak Prescott being able to find other ways to win without relying on Ezekiel Elliott to carry the ball 25 times for 100-plus yards. So I think this is something, what we've seen in the first half of this season is something that's going to benefit the Dallas Cowboys once we get to playoff-style football, because that offense will have more ways that they can win football games rather than just relying on number 21.
Yeah, I'm not concerned about Ezekiel Elliott at all. His numbers are really close to what he's always done, or what he was even doing last year. When you look at his attempts last year through 10 games, 191 attempts, 953 yards, and just 4 touchdowns or 5 touchdowns. This year, 194, 833, 7 touchdowns. So he's right there. He's just not averaging what he typically averages, the yard per carry. But again, you make a great point. The development of Dak Prescott and his growth and what he's been able to do from an expansion level of throwing the football and relying on the passing game more so than they've always done in the past, which was rely on Ezekiel Elliott in that running game, has changed the landscape of what we've become accustomed to seeing with the Dallas Cowboys. So we then say, wait a minute, what's happening with Zeke? Nothing. They just look a little different right now because the way they have to win is with Dak being brilliant versus Zeke running the ball.
But shouldn't that be with any capable quarterback? When you're just solely focused on the running game, it should open things up for you week after week when defenses come in. You said it with the Vikings, it was a good defense. Jason Garrett said after the Lions game, man, they had the whole city of Detroit on that line of scrimmage. Clearly the focus was stop Zeke. Oh, let's let Dak try to go beat us with his arm, because up until this year, he really hasn't been that guy, and now all of a sudden he is.
And so that's why you get concerned with quarterbacks who can't take advantage of those situations. So Minnesota, they are the Minnesota Vikings, not against the Cowboys, just the team. Everyone's most concerned with Dalvin Cook. And guess what? Kirk Cousins, the last 7 weeks, 6 weeks, has taken full advantage of it. He's playing the best football of his career. In Carolina, concern for Kyle Allen is everyone's concerned with Christian McCaffrey, and he's still struggling. In San Francisco, up until this past week, concern with Jimmy Garoppolo. Everyone's worried about stopping their run, and he still was not producing. That's not taking anything away from Dak, because there are a lot of quarterbacks who would be presented with these looks Dak's been presented with and would be successful, but not the level of successful that Dak has been. But yes, like if you are a top 10 quarterback in this league, which is what Dak is proving week in, week out this season, he has elevated himself to, then if defenses are still focused first and foremost on stopping the run, you have to take advantage of those situations. That was the exact critique of Dak last season, the year before, was you are getting these great looks week in, week out, and you can't take full advantage of it. He is this year, but just because Zeke's had a really bad 2 weeks. You could argue the worst back-to-back games of his career.
It is definitely the worst back-to-back.
And if it becomes a bad month, if he has 2 more of these games, a month of football is a lot of football now. It's a quarter of your season. Then I will become concerned. I am not there yet.
Yeah, I'm not there either. I mean, they know that number 21 can beat them. We've seen that in the years that Zeke has played the entire season. The Dallas Cowboys win the division, and they're hosting a home playoff game. So listen, I'm not worried about Ezekiel Elliott. He'll get back on track. I'm more concerned with Dak Prescott continuing to play at this level and making sure the 5 guys up front, the offensive line, they stay healthy.
If they're going to have any shot this weekend, though, against New England, a New England team that almost no one can pass on, you can run on New England. Zeke's going to have to get back to being Zeke this weekend if the Cowboys have a chance of upsetting New England.
All right, we got to take a break. Candy, stick around. Coming up, speaking of New England, is Tom Brady holding the Patriots offense? Is he holding them back? We'll discuss that next.
Think about how good